Good morning, everyone. Welcome to ServiceNow India Leadership Series in a Candid Conversation with Rohit Kilam. This initiative wherein we engage with the senior leaders, focusing on immediate challenges, opportunities, and the decision required to steer the economy of the country. Just to introduce myself, I am Sachin Shinde, Regional Director, ServiceNow. I have spent almost 2 decades in the industry across various large organizations. Currently, I am transforming a lot of business initiatives across banking, IT, telecom, and manufacturing verticals. To introduce my guest today, it is Rohit Kilam. Rohit is a multifaceted leader, having worked in a strategic role in India and across global economies like US, UK, Denmark, UAE, and Vietnam. He has worked on both sides of the table as a CIO as well as the CTO. He has worked in a multi-challenging assignments in digital transformation, IT strategy, performance management, building digital products, operating models, mergers and acquisitions in IT integration. Outsourcing and governance is his forte. Rohit is on the board of advisors for technology product startups, both B2B as well as the SaaS companies, and actively helping entrepreneurs to hack growth using technology. So, welcome, Rohit, to the series of ServiceNow. Generally, what happens,
So
Rohit,
much.
is our pleasure. Rohit, uh, before we begin, just wanted to check. Uh, every time we've seen people have always asked about the well-being of their teams, but a leader is never asked how is he doing in the current world. So how are you today and how is your family?
Thank you so much for asking. I think I'm doing fine, thankfully, by the grace of God. I think it is the grace of God that we need to have the gratitude for in these tough times. Once in 100 years. Yeah. Thank you very much for asking.
That's nice, Rohit. And that's the first thing, and the first thing which we want to know, that as an industry colleague of mine, you are safe, your family is safe. It's good to know. So Rohit, just wanted to check before we move on. I don't want to keep it as more technology. I know we've been doing this day in, day out. So currently, these are very amazing times, right? And both professionally as well as personally. When you started your career versus what you had dreamt as a child, is there any stark difference?
I've had a I've had a pretty innocent childhood. So yeah, so we all went through our own dreams in our innocence to look at how our future is going to shape up. Yeah,
Right.
multiple areas. But frankly, I have no qualms on to where I'm heading to. I've not reached. Right. I have no qualms on where I'm heading to. Uh, Building things is my passion, and I think even in the childhood innocence, I thought of building things.
Yeah.
Right. It may be different things, but yes, it was innocence of build, which I still keep close to my heart when I move on in my career.
Nice to know that, Rohit. And when you are not wearing your technology hat, what do you do, Rohit, during the day?
There are multiple things that keeps me busy, obviously. And pandemic times, we've always figured out different things that we are doing. But uh, from the activities on the non-professional side, I'm deeply spiritual. So I spend a lot of time with yoga of late.
Right.
I've started spending a lot of time on meditation. In fact, meditation is something that
It's 11 o'clock.
I've been working on from last 10 odd years now, not only in pandemic. Yeah.
Any
Trying.
specific yoga you do, or it is uh, any theme based or something like that?
No, there is no theme based yoga. What I'm trying to look at is to keep the body fit, and that is extremely important.
Right.
So, there are different levels of how we interact with the world, right? Obviously, the world is around us, and then there is the body, and then there is the breath. So you tend to transcend the body, breath, and the mind. And that's exactly what yoga is. It's the union. It's nothing
Right.
else.
Right.
It's
Nice.
yoga is the union, as I always say. It's BBM. Yoga is not the asanas which you do. It is the union of body, breath, and mind. BBM. Yeah.
That's a nice analogy. I would practice this as well. That's nice, Rohit. Moving on, Rohit, you know that we've recently just passed the second wave of the COVID, right? And the speculation is that probably we will hit the third wave. How do you think in this uncertain times, things are going to shape for overall, one is as the market and you as a company? So where do you see that going?
I think it's extremely important for us to understand the mind shifts which have happened in the with the pandemic that has come. Two important things from the pandemic standpoint. One is the people aspects, right? It's completely changed. Now there is a resiliency, you know, uh, the just-in-time concepts, right, that we spoke about is completely uh, turned around its head, right, to look at. So it is important that we look at the pandemic first from the resiliency thing resiliency we need to build in the organization, and resiliency we need to build in ourselves as well. How flexible are we at an enterprise level, at a team level, and at a personal level? So all three are extremely important, right? And from a people standpoint, I think it has brought huge challenges with respect to not only the health of people, but also from the point of view of how you manage your mind as well. So that also has come to the forefront with the pandemic. So what I see over the next 2-3 years going forward is that the entire structures of how we organize, how we work are going to change. One, number two, how we organize ourselves, that also is going to completely change over the next 2-3 years. It's not, it's this is the gear change which has happened, in the way we define work.
Right.
So the focus is not on the enterprise any longer, but the focus is on ourselves and how do we do the work. I would go a bit further to extend that offices may just become the clubs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, where you go to meet people, you go to interact on important issues, collaborate with people, and come back and work. Yeah, so
Right.
that's the way it would move on to,
That's right.
especially with the acceleration of the digital trend that has happened.
That's right, Rohit. You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
So I think that's what is going to change. I think more and more cafes are going to become the offices. I don't think so. People are going to invest in the real estate anymore. The
yeah.
way things are moving. I get your point. Now you are, Rohit, in a totally in a different size kind of a business. Okay. There is a lot of demand. There is a lot of challenges which you have when you are trying to satisfy your customer, right? So what are the actions you have done to stay in the forefront of your customers' mind?
In the business that we are in, I think it is extremely important to look at to ensure that there is continuity of service. That's extremely important.
Right.
So instead of business continuity planning, we have started doing pandemic continuity planning with wave one, wave two, wave three. So we've defined business continuity as pandemic continuity, right?
Right.
This is an extreme event. And it is not BAU. So that is the first thing. How do you plan for a wave three in pandemic time? What happens? How do I ensure my people, since we are in the business of managing cash on the ATMs and managing ATMs itself, how do we ensure that they are there? Otherwise, there will be chaos in the on the streets, right? If the cash is not available. So how do I ensure to do that? So there are multiple actions that we look at doing on doing that piece. Completely ensuring that the coordination is built. There are control rooms across, so we are across the country, from Andaman to Ladakh. How do we ensure the zones and the regions are working? That's the other part of it from a resiliency standpoint. I think the other part of it is what the pandemic has brought in the front is uh, it is employee first.
Right.
I think that's a very good change which has started coming. We've moved out of the rat race kind of a thing, right? And we've moved into an employee first culture as we, and it's not happened with a organization, it has happened across the organization, right? Organizations are vaccinating people, they're reaching out to people, they're arranging doctors, people have gone ahead and arranged uh, you know medical facilities.
Right.
There are self-help groups within organizations. That is something which is, I think, is a very positive shift because of this. So employee first is the other piece that is extremely important in this.
Right. Just adding to my previous question, just taking it forward. Uh, how do you think your company is going to evolve or change in the next few years, especially because the way we're going to, because these are uncertain times, is going to continue for some time. So, what are those top priorities which is set by the company for the organization?
I think the priorities are, as they say, planning is important, but plan is not.
Right, right, absolutely right. Yeah,
So when we plan, right, we are planning for multiple choices which we may take, multiple scenarios that we take, right? So multiple scenarios obviously uh, hinge upon a lot of digital pieces that we are going to look at, right? And in the digital pieces, we are looking at how do we ensure resiliency in the organization? How do we ensure that the core operations is completely digitized, right? And how do we ensure that we get more customer B2B customer centricity into the entire piece, right? So those are the pieces that are extremely important for us to look at from a growth standpoint,
right,
right? That is one part of it. Second part of it, obviously, as I said, is people, right? How do we treat people uh, as employee first organization? I think it was said a long time back, but we really now do understand as an industry that it is actually, if you treat your employees well, your customers will be happy, right? Right. So I think that is going to come up over the next years. Yeah. Also, the pandemic is opening up opportunities,
right, absolutely right.
and it's opened up multiple business opportunities, which we see, which you can capitalize on as well. So that is the third area that you can specifically look at going forward.
Very well said, Rohit. You obviously know that success doesn't come without any challenge, right? That's the core to anything. Tell us a leadership challenge you faced and you remember till date, and how did you overcome it?
Uh, I think leadership challenges are challenges with people, right? That's as a technologist, I can say I can build anything, right?
Right,
But how the technology is getting absorbed, that is extremely important. We may have built an atom bomb, but how did it get used, right?
that's right.
So how do we start looking at challenges of the usage of technology?
Right,
How do we look at challenges of leadership, challenges of making people in the pandemic times also give their more 100%, right, and be completely involved? I have seen teams where families are completely affected, people are mild COVID affected and still working,
right,
right? And they say that, and my team commented, I said, hey, relax, you don't need to. He said, no, my mind keeps, I'm in quarantine and my mind is focused if I just open my laptop and start working, right? So there are people, look at that, that perseverance of people to work. That is something which we all need to inculcate. from a people standpoint, from a challenge. So that is the clear challenge. How do I get 100% out of people when working in virtual teams?
Right.
How do I engage my teams more effectively while working virtually? Right. How do I ensure that that my team is completely focused on that one goal? So communication becomes extremely important in this case from a leadership challenge standpoint. Right? How do we communicate? Second, as a leader, I think mood setting is extremely important.
Right.
There is so much of negativity happening all around us. How do we set a positive tone? How do we set a positive uh, positive message to the people and the team so that they can focus and deliver? There's so much of fear in the pandemic, right? It's not only fear about their economic fears. There are personal health issues. There's so much of fear in this, and as I've always believed, a team cannot perform if it is under fear.
Right.
A team can perform only if it has trust.
Right.
How do I build that trust is a leadership challenge, right?
Yes.
And there's no simple silver bullet for it. The multiple things that you do to build that trust with the team.
So it's all about people. It's coming out in the pandemic wave. Just
Yes.
because, and it is important that the challenge will continue. But as a leader, there will be another challenge, which not a challenge. How do you keep people motivated and keep developing their talent as well in this pandemic? That is very, very important. So how do you do that? Motivation is very, very important in today's time.
So I think motivation is a misnomer, because
Right.
motivation is always from outside to inside. You're motivating people, you're pushing people. Inspiration is the right word.
Right.
How do you inspire people to do something? So you start creating role models for them to look at. And that comes to how do we build our managers to be inspiring to my team members.
Right.
Not motivation. Motivation is very easy. You pay them more, you give them more holidays. This is all very short term. If you want to make the team stick together and do something big, you'll have to inspire them. You see, projects like large projects in which have been delivered. It may be a Mangalyaan kind of a project, right? Or army for that sake, right? Missions that army takes. They are not motivated; they are inspired.
Right.
So that shift has to happen between motivation to inspiration. If you have to move people to inspiration, then things will start falling on their own. You have to move people to trust each other, then they will start moving on their own.
Right.
So that is the people shift that we have to look at.
This is coming from your yoga practice. I can see, and then it is also coming from your meditation. All these things comes from there. Rohit, last but not the least, how a technology company like us can enable an organization like you because you are also talking about people, process, and the technology. Obviously, the technology is going to play a very pivotal role in engaging the organization as well as the people. So how do you think people like us can help you?
I think it's extremely important for technology organizations to look at ways to enable collaboration, open communication, right? These are two important things. And in these times of internet world, I think there are three things which are important, which I always keep talking to a lot of founders as well. Yeah, one is virality, another is influenceability, right? And third is high touch digital.
Right.
These are the three things which are extremely important: virality, influenceability. How do you influence, right, your team, your customers? It's not just, in 1990s, it was about just going and meeting the person and influencing him, or talking to him and giving the best deal to him, right? It's no longer.
Absolutely.
You have to influence him now, right? How do you influence him? Through multiple ways. From a technology standpoint, from a virality standpoint, you build that virality in your product. People are looking at, can my product solve 10 problems? No. Can my product solve one problem, but solve it so well that it is 100% for that one problem, right? Those are the products which have succeeded in this internet world. And lastly, high touch digital. You have to keep in touch in multiple ways with your stakeholders, right? That is extremely important. How do you build that high touch? You never feel distant from your stakeholders, right? So that is important. So these are three things which are important from the internet age standpoint.
Yes, absolutely, Rohit. Thank you, Rohit. I think it was a very good conversation with you. You have given me some of the things which I should rethink in my daily routine. I think I'll bring some of them into practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for coming for the ServiceNow forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.